Imagine the following scenario. You are in a situation where you don't know what is the right way to go. So you're thinking about it. Suddenly, someone whom you respect deeply comes to you and say, do it this way. And you are like, are you sure? He says, yes, of course, this is the way. You say to yourself, your intuition doesn't support what he's saying. You respect him too much. So you're like, okay, fine. He also assures you that he will be with you when you actually do it. And so you go ahead and do that thing, whatever that may be. But at that point, he vanishes. And you're sitting there saying, why did I do this thing in the first place itself? Well, it happens to many of us, and it happened to Alireza Firouzja in the fourth round of the candidates. And that person whom we respect a lot, or whom we mentioned in this story, is none other than the engine. Let's have a look at the game and you will understand this story much better. So, Nepo, playing with the white pieces, opens the game with 1 e4. Firuja responds with the Sicilian, and it was the open Sicilian on the board. It is very exciting. Knight f6, knight c3, a6, and we had the Najdorf. Nepo goes f3, e5, knight to b3, bishop e6, bishop e3, bishop to e7, queen d2, castles, long castles, knight bd7. So all very standard, has been seen before in over 13,000 games. White starts a kingside attack with g4, a pawn storm coming there. Black plays on the queen side. Now you attack with g5, and there are two main moves here. One is to move the knight, the other one mainly to h5, and the other one is to counter attack, which is b4. This is the more popular way to play. And white does not prefer taking, because after takes, queen takes, knight f6, this looks like a fine position for black. So white generally plays his knight to e2. Now black also removes his knight and goes to e8. This time notice that going to h5 might not be the best of ideas because of knight g3. And that's the reason why you go back here. And now white realizes that if he goes on to that same pawn storm fight with h4, he would be much slower, because black goes a5, h5, a4, and it's really a very powerful attack that is coming your way. So that's the reason why f4 was played in this position by white. And now came the move a5. The reason f4 is played, that is, if after takes you play a5, the d4 square is cleared for the knight and he can sit there, and this is a very good position for white. So a5, f5, and now comes the important position of this entire game. So in the past, there have been two main moves played in this position. One is to take here. After taking, I would say that now the modern engines suggest that white has a good position, or at least an edge here after cb. And let's say if you want to go a4, that looks very natural. Then a very powerful move here. Maybe you can think for a bit if you want to, because this is a nice moment to think. Yeah, I mean, taking is possible, and then king b1. It is something that has been played in several games, maybe over 800 games or so. And then rook takes a2 is played, and then knight c1, and white is doing okay. But I think another nice way is to go king b1, a b3, and knight c1. And if he takes here, you go here. And if he goes queen a5, you go bishop c4. So basically, bishop takes b3 does not look like a good option anymore. But there is another one, which is a4. And this reminds us of the famous game between Anand and Karyakin, which continued with knight d4, takes, b3, king b1, b takes c2, knight takes c2, bishop b3. And for all those who do not know this game well, the famous move comes exactly here. Black to play what is the winning move for black. It's an amazing move that was found by Vishy Anand, subsequently also played in a few other games, I think in mainly correspondence chess. Knight c7, brilliant move by Vishy. And the point is, if you take the knight, rook c8, and black is winning, let's say queen e7, knight c4. and it's just winning. So this doesn't work. Okay. So here, I think Firuja could have played either bishop b3, which is not the most popular, or a4, but he decides to go bishop c4. And believe it or not, it has not been played at top level chess. I doubt whether it has even been played at any level of chess over the board. It has been played a lot in correspondence chess. I see 92 games already played with it. But it is clear that this move is very, very dangerous. Why? Because black is not doing something quickly on the queen side. He has to either play a4 or he must take and then play a4. But here he is moving a piece. Now, white on the other hand, the main problem for white has been over here that his knight on b3 is going to be attacked. So Nepo does something very simple here, very human. He does king b1. Because after a4, you can go knight c1. That was his point, the human way to play this position. The more, if you have an engine, maybe you would go knight to g3, and perhaps this is the best move. But imagine that you are playing this against a well-prepared opponent. Takes a4. You don't really want to put your knight on a1. Although 60 games have been played in this position as well. So bishop c4, king b1, he played a4, knight c1. And now the next move played by Firuja in just 19 seconds is your first question for the day. Black to play, what would you play? And mind you, it's the only move in the position for black to stay. And Firuja had prepared it, so it was all good. The move that Firuja played here, and which is the best, is d5. If you found it, excellent job. The idea of this move is that if you were to take, he takes d5, then here there are two ways to continue, but I really like this idea with f6. So you stop white's idea of pushing f6. Next, you want to put your knight here on d6 and then queen c7. And this looks like a very interesting way to play. d5 here was played very quickly, and Nepo now took a solid 5 minutes on the clock and decided on his next move, which I would like you to think, what would you do in this position? White to play. I don't know if this was Nepo's prep still, I doubt it, but he found the best move here, which is so very dangerous for the black king with f6. Now, when Alireza prepared this line, clearly f6 is coming in so many positions. So he would have really looked at, this g file opening up and this dynamic where his king remains on h8, and he must have tried to understand that deeper. That's what I imagine. And he took here ndf6 pretty quickly. No, he took around 6 minutes for this move. So he was already beginning to not be in his territory. And now, after knight g3, we reach a position where Alireza started to feel uncomfortable. On this move, he took 30 minutes on the clock. And this is exactly what I mean by, someone whom you deeply respect, that is the engine, tells you to do something, which is play this position. And then when you actually reach it, you are like, oh my God, he's no longer with me. The engine is no longer with you in the game. You're like, oh, what's the right way now? I don't know. Well, the right way forward was queen c7, a decent move. Even knight d6, very interesting move. Or king h8. These are all the interesting moves in the position and would have kept black in good stead. His position still remains dangerous for sure, but these are some of the possibilities. But Firuja took here, and this is already a bad move, because after rook takes, he pushed a3. Now this time with 28 minutes on the clock, he took b3. So suddenly he's like way behind Nepo on time. And now came the move king h8 after 9 minutes of thought. Well, if you look at some other moves here, d4, bishop h6 looks already very dangerous. D takes e4, there is queen takes d8. Now if you play bishop d8, there is bishop c5. And if you play rook d8, there is a very strong move for white here. Not not rook d8 takes and bishop c5, which is very normal, but actually knight f5 is just killer here, so very powerful there. Okay, king h8 played, and now Nepo took on d5, and Alireza once again took a lot of time on his clock and played knight d6. We will come to that position, but first queen c7, which was the best move in the position. I want you to think, what would you play here as white to play? Here, the very nice move is rook takes f6. You can't play knight f5 because of knight e4, and then the knight is coming to c3 with a check. But rook f6, and now if you play knight f6, I have d6. And if you play bishop f6, I have d6 as well. And queen b4 with excellent play here for the exchange. So this was a good move. If rook c8 was played, there was also bishop g5. White is having a lot of pressure here. Knight d6, and you know, Nepo during the game, you could see him, he looks at Alireza and is like, this doesn't look right, Alireza. Here he simply went ahead, and you can guess the move, guys. Next point for you, what should white do in this position? An important moment where you need to get a decisive edge. Well, it's pretty straightforward. You take the pawn on b4. It's an excellent move. Queen takes b4. And now if knight d4, there is d6. If knight f5, there is also d6. So basically, the knight discovered attacks does not work. Why d6 works? Just trying to think a little bit deeper. If you take with the bishop, I can take with the rook. If you take back with the knight, then I have bishop g5 pinning and winning. And apart from that, if you were to take back with the knight, then I can put my bishop on c5 and put a lot of pressure here. So rook c8 was played, and now Alireza went here. If queen e8, I have rook takes f6, bishop f6, queen d6 wins here. And if knight to b5, threatening knight c3, well, you can once again go d6, knight c3, king a1. If knight d1, d7, so bishop f6, d7, knight d1 takes, and bishop d4. White is completely winning. So queen d7 was played, and now it's your move once again. I had Divya Deshmukh commentating with me at this point, and she was extremely impressed with this move. Not only because this move was amazing, but also because Nepo found it in 15 seconds only. White to play. Can you, or did you find it in 15 seconds? Well, the move is the very surprising and a retreating move, queen e1. Putting pressure on e5, and somehow this is just game over. Yeah, rook b8 was played, the bishop was saved. Now knight a5, knight c4, bishop, here he went d6, which is also a very cool move. bd8, if knight d6, there's queen e5. If bishop d6, then you have f6 hanging, so you can't really do that. So that's the reason why bishop d8, bishop c3, queen e6, knight to d3, attacking e5 further, knight d5, knight to f4, good move, takes, f6, and now queen e2, attacking the knight, knight b2, rook f1. Notice how you can't take here because the queen is always hanging. So rook e8, rook h4, f5, and now the final blow, guys. White to play. What do you play? Well, the rook is hanging here, so you don't want to win this pawn just as yet. The best move here is boom. Awesome move. And if you found it, congratulations, because after king h7, queen h5 check, you can't block because your e8 rook would hang. So that's the reason why king g8, knight f5, bishop f6, and now rook g1. And here Alireza resigned because after this move, rook g1, the problem is that if you go to f8, which is the only move, I go check, you have to come here, check, you have to take and mate. So with this, Alireza Firouzja lost a game, and I mean, one who was considered to be one of the favorites in this tournament is clearly struggling here. These are the standings right now in the tournament. Let me just pull them up. Yeah, these are the standings in the tournament. Nepo leading with 3 points, Caruana on 2.5, Duda on 2, Rapport 2, Nakamura 2, Ding Lejeune and Rajabov and Firuja on 1.5 points. Here are a few pictures taken by Steve Bonhedge. Very nice pictures. Nepo after his victory looking very, very sharp and smart. In the game, it was these are a few pictures here. Nepo was tremendously determined to win today, and this was before the start of the game, and this was at the end of the game. Handshake. You could see Firuja was clearly blown off the board, and also you could see him moving out like, okay, today it didn't work really well in his favor. Although that book in the no, there's no book actually. It's a player card that he has in his hand. Some very nice pictures by Steve Bonhedge. He took it under this chandelier in the playing venue. For now, guys, this is Sagar Shah signing off. Hope you enjoyed this game, and let's see what happens in this tournament. Nepo is currently crushing it with the lead. He's the sole leader with 3 points, but 10 more rounds to go, so anything can happen.